All right. It is good to see everybody. Been traveling a lot this summer, so I've been kind of in and out. I had a convention I was at, and then we went to Guatemala. Talk about a little bit about that in a second. And then just got back from the lake, so I am ready to go, or just tired because I've either been on Mountain Time or Central Time for the past 3 or 4 weeks here. As I kind of begin here, I want to let you know that the past couple of weeks we've been really just kind of covering a couple core values. And so last week we covered this idea that we want to make a difference as a church. And so we want to be different makers in the community, in the lives of the people around us, in the community that we live. Like if Catalyst Church didn't exist, we should be missed. Let's just say that. Like if we're not missed, if we no longer exist, we're probably not doing our job. So last week we had a serve day. Which was it was awesome to see and to hear about. Over 60 of you participated in Serve Day. I heard at the park we collected roughly, I think, 8 bags of trash and 2 buckets of trash. And so thank you for doing that. And that's a lot of trash. We go there fairly often, and I assume some of that's probably from my kids, because I don't know, they just eat, and it's just like this. All over my yard, they're in trouble all the time. I'm always threatening, like, no more snacks. Not like you're not doing that. We're not doing that anymore, and then we get them. Emily buys them. Then we were at Operation Love, and a number of you prepared backpacks for the kids getting ready to go back to school. We're going back to school soon, and so we prepared, I think, about 50 backpacks of school supplies for people. So that was just an awesome thing to get to participate in and get to do. So we're glad. They're one of our ministry partners, so we're glad to get to they're going to hand those out to the people. And I know you did some work around their facilities. We did over 25 loads of laundry for Outfitters right down the road here. I said last service, I said they're for the underclothed. I don't think that's what you're supposed to say. There are plenty of people who are underclothed, but probably not. So they help provide clothes for people at a reasonable price that's nice. And so we're glad to get to partner with them and to do that. I know some of you were here too, doing some work around this building and shaping some things up. So I really appreciate that. And then also, on top of that, on our core value of making a difference, we took a group to Guatemala. And it was just, I hope some of you got to hear about what they had to say, because it was an incredible trip. And I need to just kind of take a moment to brag on them. And I can do this. Paul does this in the text that we're about to get in this. Paul, in the Bible, he brags about what God is up to through himself and through other people. So he doesn't say, hey, look at me or look at other people primarily, but he says, I want to show you what God has done. And he'll brag and he'll boast about it. He's okay with that. So if he can do it, I can do it. I'll just tell you straight up that I am always nervous when I take a group on a mission trip. And here's why. Like I always tell them, this is not a vacation. I know you're going out of the country. It's going to be warm. There's going to be sun. There's going to be mountains. There's going to be like all of these, new encounters and new experiences. But it's not a vacation. We are going to do mission work, and we're going to go stay with missionaries. And it is their job to share Jesus with people and to do what they're doing. And so we are showing up, and we are going to stay a week with them, and we are going to help them do their job and present themselves to the communities and the country that they are working in. And so I'm just try to be really straightforward with our teams. Like, we're going to do whatever the missionaries want us to do in the way that they want us to do it. We're there to serve them. Like, think about it this way. Think about your work, like if you care about your work, and I hope you do. If you don't, yeah, there's a whole other issue. We'll talk about that later. But and just pretend you had 10 to 20 people show up, and they're telling you, I'm going to live with you, and then I'm also going to do your work alongside of you. How would you feel about that? Yeah, you'd probably be a little nervous. But that's essentially what we're doing. And so we show up, and I would just tell you, the team, they worked extremely hard. They did an incredible job. And I was really proud just to see the work that they were doing. We pour concrete, we help repair buildings, we work with kids, they did VBSs. It was just an incredible thing to see. But not only that, our team was spiritually aware. They had no problem sharing what God had done in their lives and the lives of others. One of the things we do is we do house visits. And so we're showing up in houses, and people will share. They'll share what's going on in their lives, and we get an opportunity to share what we feel like God is telling us or what we would want them to know. And just like, in our own context, we have things that go on in our lives that we have struggles and different things. And they would share a struggle, for instance, I think one of the young ladies even shared this, and some other people on our team shared this, is that, in some of the houses that we go to, some of the men struggle with addiction or alcohol addiction, and they're alcoholics, so they're absent from the homes. And so we had a number of people just step up and say, hey, I grew up in a house like that too. I know what it's like, and I know God can be faithful to you. Like God is still with you. Don't quit praying for your father. Don't give up. And they got to hear that. Some of the Guatemalans had to hear that from our team, and just a lot of incredible stuff. The missionary, her name's Kim, the primary missionary that was there, that was leading our group. She said over and over again how like hard our team worked and how thankful she was for our team to be there. And I just want you to know that our team represented Christ in our church really well. And you need to know that, because you're a part of forming those people and then sending those people out. We are a church. That means collectively, like we do these things together, and so extremely important for us all. I believe that we're making a difference, not only in our community but around the world, and we need to continue to do that. Now, as I tell you that, I want you to turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 12. And as you're going there, I'm going to set up some context here. I'm going to tell you what I want to focus on this morning. I'm going to jump into context here in a second. Paul, as he is writing to them, part of what Paul does in 2 Corinthians is he's just really upfront with people. He's really honest with people, and he's going to begin with some honesty and a word of comfort. Now, this is important for us because the core value that I want to talk to you about this morning, we have 4 core values in our church. One is we are committed to make a difference, and the one I want to talk to you about today is that we are committed to authenticity. Now, if you are a part of our congregation, I'm going to ask you to say this with me here so you can remember it, okay? If you're not, you can just say, these people are a bunch of weirdos, or you can join us later, or not. That's fine too. Like, go somewhere else. You don't want to be a part of this? That's fine. That's kind of full in here anyway. So, just telling you, like, it's up to you. So here we go. On 3, you're going to say you're committed to authenticity with me. Ready? 1, 2, 3. We are committed to authenticity. All right, one more time. We are committed to authenticity. Good. So here's one of the things I do. I honestly, we do this every staff meeting. We ask our staff, what are our 4 core values? And so if you don't believe me, after the service, find somebody who's on staff. I think our interns can do this too. And ask them what our 4 core values are. And if they can't tell you them, they're fired on the spot, okay? Because here's the thing. I'm a big believer in culture, and culture trickles down. And so we have to know who we are and who we're trying to be, but as a staff, before we ask you to do it. So one of the things that we're aiming towards is authenticity. Now, what does this mean? Like, when you think about people being authentic, you think of them probably like being real or genuine, like kind of what you see is what you get, or there might be even some self-revelation in who they are, or who they're willing to share themselves with you. Doesn't mean we just do this with everybody. Like, you can kind of be foolish in that way as well, but like you just like, that's who they are. That's who they're becoming. And so this is kind of a quick summary of kind of what we believe authenticity is. Now, Paul begins his letter to the 2 Corinthians kind of in a very authentic way. And what he does, and I'm going to give you some context here in verses 3 through 11. I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to tell you essentially what he's doing, is he opens the letter by telling everybody that life isn't perfect. Like, it's not all unicorns and rainbows. Life is not great all the time. And for Paul, this was real. Like this, he experienced this reality in his life. Paul is a dude that he finds himself getting beat up a good bit. And he goes from kind of the guy who ordered people to beat other people up, and I'm saying he ordered because what you discover about Paul as you kind of study him, he's kind of shorter, probably bald, not much to look at, kind of wimpy. They laughed in first service. I think they were just describing myself for some reason, but so he's getting beat up all the time, primarily now because he's telling people about Jesus, and he's pretty bold with his words. So he finds himself getting beat up all the time. He finds himself shipwrecked. He gets bitten by a snake. He's in and out of prison. And by the way, he's also just left for dead after he gets beat up. Like people, that's how bad he's getting beat up. So he's writing the Corinthian church, not just like saying like, yeah, I've been through some hard things. Like he's really been through some hard things. He's really been through some rough stuff. And he's essentially telling them like, this can be a reality for you. This can be true for you. And it doesn't matter who you are or what you've done. You can do everything right. And still, like, some really bad things can happen to you in your life. Jesus taught this, by the way. The rain falls on the just and the unjust alike. Like, this is not karma. Like, if you do this, this will happen. Like, for sure. Like, if you just do good things, there is a general principle, like, you reap what you sow. Like, there are some things, like, if you do certain things, like, yeah, it's going to happen to you, right? You don't pay your bills, you're going to lose your house. Like, you read those things, that's a reality. But what Paul is saying here is that, like, bad things happen, like, some deeply hurtful things happen. But not only that, he gets done saying that, and then he kind of moves to a word of comfort. Because not only was Paul in the early church really real with people, like, yes, I know this happened to you. Yes, I know this could happen to you. Yes, I know you're going through this. But by the way, like, there is hope in the midst of this. They're resurrection people. They're real, but they're also resurrection people. There's a lot of hope that Paul inserts, and the early Christians insert into the life of the church. They want people to know, like, you can still look forward to the future. You could, like, some things could change in the here and now, but even if they don't change in the here and now, there's a time where either Jesus is going to return or you're going to rise from the dead. Like, even death does not, like, it will not keep you down. And so you have both going on within the early church. And so Paul is trying to be, like, straight up with them from the very beginning, and he's trying to console others with this reality. And this is just a posture of the New Testament church. This is just a posture of the early Christians. And they get this from Jesus, who is the supreme example. Right? Jesus suffered. Jesus was afflicted. Jesus had hardships. He's persecuted. He's rejected. Jesus is abused. All of these things happened to Jesus, but they're not even for his own gain, but for the salvation of others. And so Paul is just coming out and saying, hey, like, you don't have to avoid your pain. You don't have to avoid your suffering. I don't in my life. You should actually know that some of the things that are going on in your life connects you to the redemptive work of Christ if you're willing to share it with others and walk through it with other people. And so this is how Paul begins. And then he gets to verse 12 here. So he's going to talk about honesty about suffering and what it can do in you and through you and for other people. And then he's actually going to get into honesty about his own conduct. And he's going somewhere with this. And that's where we kind of want to jump in here. So this is verse 12. He says, for our boast is this. There he goes. There's Paul bragging about what God did in him and through him and his team while he was in Corinth. He says, the testimony of our conscience that we behaved in the world with simplicity and godly sincerity, not by earthly wisdom, but by the grace of God, and supremely so towards you. So Paul writes to them, and he says, hey, this is the way we behaved. We behaved with simplicity and sincerity. This is the godliness that we exhibited towards you. Now, how many people would, like, describe their lives, or how many of you would describe your life in those two terms? Simplicity and godly sincerity. Like, you don't have to raise your hand or whatever. Like, probably not a lot of us are, like, shooting for that. Like, simplicity. My wife was over here in the first service, and I'm in trouble. I'm just going to tell you this too, but you know, one time she said, yeah, somebody, like, addressed my wardrobe as basic. I'm like, yeah, baby, you're just a basic white girl, right? And she really did not appreciate that. But this is essentially how Paul is describing himself here. Like, I showed up, like, I'm simple. Like, I'm simple and I'm sincere. What you see is kind of what you get. What the commentators, they say, when they look at these words and they kind of put them together, basically what Paul is describing, he's describing this, is I showed up with frankness of character. Like, we showed up. He's talking because he had a team here. We showed up with frankness of character. What you see is what you get. Like, I was real with you. I was frank with you. like that's what I was. Like, you saw the real thing with us. And what he is trying to do among the churches that he planted and plants, he planted the church in Corinth here, he's basically like trying to tell them, like, hey, one of the things he's doing is like, come along with us. This is what we want for you all as well. We want you to embody this. And so when we talk about, hey, we are a church committed with authenticity, I'm not telling you to be a basic white girl, like whatever, like, dress how you want to dress. I don't care. Like, well, I do to a point, like, be modest. But colors, whatever. But what I'm saying is that we are after authenticity. Like, we want to be able to be real and frank and authentic with people. But we're going to struggle with this because the culture struggles with this. We all struggle with this from time to time. Like, being authentic is hard, isn't it? It's hard. Why is it hard? Think about this for a moment. What is authenticity built on? Like, what keeps you from being authentic with other people? Probably trust. Trust. Like, authenticity generally assumes kind of a foundation of trust. And very few of us trust people. And probably for some good reason. Like, in modern culture, in modern society, we haven't really been taught to trust people. Or maybe we haven't had a whole lot of people in our lives that we could trust. I did a little bit of kind of thinking about trust and a little bit of research. And there are some barriers that keep us from trusting. And it's not easy to trust. Let me just say some of these to you, read some of these things that I was thinking about. So this is a stat from Pew Research. It says only 20% of Americans said they trust the government to do what is right most of the time. Like, I thought that was high. So like we can't trust, right, people that we elect to serve us generally. So I mean, think about that for a second. We're voting people in that we don't trust. We just assume that we can't trust them after we put them in, right? Our culture, just generally, we kind of are built on and celebrate these things. And it's not completely, like, not all these things are, like, awful, but when you, like, lay the foundation of society on these, or yourself on these, it can be extremely destructive. So we're built on the idea of individualism, personal autonomy, self-expression, and consumerism. And so we've kind of bought into this really being the basic philosophy of our lives instead of building our lives on Christ and what he would have for us. So generally, like, our posture towards other people, if this is the philosophical foundation of your life, that you're primarily an individual that should and could do what they want at any given time, what you are essentially doing, probably with most of your relationships, is you are asking this question in all of your relationships, is what is in it for me? Right? What is in it for me? Or you have been raised, or you've grown up around, or primarily your friends, like, that's the dominant philosophy kind of their life. And so they're always asking, what is in it for me? And so like, that type of person is just not a safe person. They're not the type of person that you can trust. Social media has created an ecosystem where we present our ideal selves. And by the way, like, I generally do this on social media. Like, I'm only, like, people ask, like, I'm only posting pictures of the fish I catch, right? I'm not posting anything from this past week where I was at the lake and caught one fish. It wasn't even that big, right? So, like, we do that, and I do it on purpose. I don't want to, like, I don't post a bunch of, like, negative. I don't want to bring people down. But what we discover is that it's really hard, at least probably for my generation, didn't really grow up on it. It's hard to be authentic on social media, and that's what we're seeing, and we're seeing people's ideal selves most of the time. And so it generally just kind of creates a level of suspicion towards other people, like even the way that they present themselves. And for some, for a period of time, I think this is getting a little bit better, but people were just afraid to get canceled. Like, if you said the wrong thing or did the wrong thing, or you were trying to process all the changes going on, like, you might be written off by people. Like, so, like, I guess, cancel culture or whatever, if that's what you want to call it. So people struggle. And so it's not just personal, but it's cultural. We struggle to trust people because we created a culture that's been shaped by suspicion, performance, and fear. And what Paul is doing in the ethos of the Bible is trying to get us to resist this. Now, I want to give you a little more context on what's going on here, and these are the verses following what I just read. I'm not going to read it all to you, but you can read it and you can check me on this. One of the reasons that Paul's taking this turn at this moment in his letter to the Corinthian church is that the Corinthian church didn't trust Paul. Now, this is kind of wild because he's the one who planted the church. He's the one who showed up in Corinth and got it started. That was him. So you can imagine even probably how hurtful this is to Paul, that he's got to write this letter, and he's actually, what he's doing through this letter, part of the purpose of this letter and this part of the letter is he's trying to gain their trust back. He's essentially asking for it. And the way that he is asking for it is he's telling them, hey, remember who I and my team was last time I was there in Corinth? That's what I want you to remember. I don't want you to remember primarily the style or lack of style that I had there. I want you to remember the words that I said and the actions that followed. And I want you to test me on that. That's what Paul is telling them here. Because we don't know all the details of what it went on the last time Paul was there, but we do know a few details. We can probably assume that he created some division. Or some division happened because of the work of Paul. People weren't getting along, and they kind of were blaming Paul on that. What we do know is that after Paul planted the church in Corinth, another dude came along named Apollos, and Apollos was a really good preacher and teacher from what we can tell. Must have been dark, handsome, had a lot of hair, tall, all those sorts of things. And so most people actually preferred Apollos, and so there was these arguments going on. Well, I prefer Paul, I prefer Apollos, and Paul's I don't care who you prefer. I planted, Apollos watered, but if there's any growth that happened, it was the work of God in your lives. And he said, I want you to know that. But he doesn't give up on trying to get them to understand, hey, I want you to trust me because I am your spiritual father. And by the way, I'm appealing not to even me planting the church. I'm appealing to whether or not you saw the work of God in the ministry that I had while you were there through our character. Because Paul struggled a little bit with them. They wanted somebody flashy, they wanted a performance, but Paul is just essentially saying that's not me. Well, what I gave you and what our team tried to give you is some consistency and trustworthiness, from us. And he's trying to say, hey, that needs to be enough. And so he's trying to earn their trust. And there's not a culture of trust in the Corinthian church there. And so he's trying to work that way in. And he actually, the reason that we have this letter and some of the things that he's doing is because he doesn't show up in person. He actually takes, from what we can tell, he took kind of a route around Corinth to get home, and they actually got mad at him. And he's well, last time I showed up, there was a bunch of division, so I'm trying not to call this division, so I'm trying to give you this letter, so next time I come, some of this gets smoothed out here. What you need to know is that Paul doesn't give up on this, and he doesn't give up on the Corinthian church. He's trying to create a church that loves the Lord and is moving towards him. And so for us this morning, I want to spend the rest of our time just talking about what it looks like for us to create and to have an authentic church culture. So just a few things here that I want us to walk away with. How do we do this? And the first way we do this is that we have to create a culture of trust in God's grace. And so for this is for all of us individually and collectively. Let me say it. Let me say it like this. Is Paul seemed to have an incredible amount of freedom in his ministry that even I'm trying to pursue in my life and in my ministry in general. Paul is able to say this to them. He says, our boast is this, the testimony of our conscience. In other words, when I showed up, I had a clear conscience before you. So he said, I acted with simplicity and godly sincerity. And then he said this, not by earthly wisdom, but by the grace of God. So a few things are going on there. One, he's saying, hey, what I did when I was in your midst, I believe that most of that was from God for you. And I operated in a way where I gave you wisdom that didn't come from myself, but came through the grace of God. But not only that, Paul was a man who relied deeply on God's grace and drank deeply from God's grace. And this is even something for my life that I've had to do to be able to do ministry. The freedom that I see that he generally has in ministry is one that sometimes I am still pursuing. I'll just tell you this like flat out, like when I preach or teach, if I feel like I messed up or it was a bad Sunday or whatever, like I can beat myself up. Now, I'm much better than what I used to be. Like, I hate to get things wrong. And believe it or not, sometimes I get things wrong. I know some of you are like, no way. Yeah. Like 2 people are like that. But this is kind of just how I'm wired. I'll just tell you this, like even after I became a Christian, like I had to deal with this and struggle with this because I wanted to represent the Lord so much. Like I wanted to do the right thing. I wanted to make sure that like if I were in front of people, like people would have seen the work of God in my life. And so I would go home like at the end of the day, man, and I like had it as like almost like videotape. They don't do videotapes, don't do DVDs or anything like that anymore. But this scroll, like in my head, lay down in bed. I'd usually do like my Bible reading, lay down in bed, and I'd like go through the day, and I like only things that would pop in my mind is like where I messed up, like where I didn't get it right, either whether I did something wrong or said something wrong, and just like remember sitting there with the Lord and like almost having at times like this feeling like the Lord is like disappointed in me or what I had done or what I had said, or anything like that. And it's not that I had ever, any certain day that I probably ever got anything right, but I had a very difficult time like resting in God's grace. Like, yeah, I'm messed up. Like, God still loves me though. Like, he's still good. Like, he's not just in the room disappointed with Josh Dieter because he didn't do everything right that day or didn't represent Christ perfectly that day. Like, but rather that God is in that room and like, I wish I would have been able to sit on like, he loves me. Like I got it wrong, but God still loves me. Like tomorrow is a new day. Like he can redeem whatever I messed up. He can change whatever I did in me and maybe even through me the next day. And, I struggled with that for years until like I had to like realize that, hey, like, yeah, I'm a child of God. He's a good father. He loves me. He gives and pours out grace. But not only that, like I don't have to be perfect. Paul seemed to just orient himself towards this. It's not that he didn't like that the Corinthian church didn't like him. I'm sure, I'm sure it was deeply hurtful. I planted this church, and they don't even like me. But later on in his message to the Corinthians in this writing, this is what he says to them. He says each time, and he's talking about his own prayer time with the Lord and his posture towards other people and towards the church. He says, the Lord said this to him, my grace is all you need. My power works best in your weakness. He said, God told me that my power doesn't work best when you're killing it all the time or because of how great you are, because how many gifts that you have or, any of those things. But like my power actually works best when you are weak and people can see that and they can experience that and they can know that what came out of you actually wasn't from you, but it was from God himself as he was working through you. And so one of the things that then he says, I'm going to brag about, he says, I'm going to brag or I'm going to boast about my weaknesses. Like, my strengths were like God-given. I have them, but I'm going to brag about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me. He said, I become okay with my weakness because I know that God is working in that and through me. And so authenticity, it begins with an inward posture towards God where you have to receive the grace of God. You don't have it all together, and that's okay. That's an opportunity for God to work in your life and for his power to shine through you. You have to receive grace from the Lord. Some of you need to hear that this morning. You need to receive the love of God. You need to receive the grace of God. You need to receive the forgiveness of God. You need to be released from any shame or guilt that you might have and receive God as a good Father who loves you and Jesus as a Savior who has died for you. So that's one of the inward postures that we need to have. Now, you need to take that and you need to direct it towards others. You need to direct it towards others, and you're going to have to give it to others. If we want to be a church that values authenticity and experiences it, we can't just receive God's grace for ourselves, but we have to be people that, like, people know if I go to them, like, they're going to give it to me. And newsflash for you all, not only are you going to say things and do things that you wish you hadn't, other people are going to say things and do things to you that you wish they hadn't, right? In the church, even. And the challenge for you is going to be, are you going to give the grace to them that they want from you? Right? So, second thing I want to tell you then in this application part of the message is that we have to cultivate trust in our community. And the church is called to be a counterculture of trust, not performance. Not performance. Paul said this, we behaved in the world with simplicity and godly sincerity, supremely toward you. So authenticity begins inwardly, and then it reaches outwardly. And so if you got to be real with God, you have to receive the grace that you need, and you have to give it to others. Without a culture of trust, or without being able to trust anybody, what we do is we basically have a life full of shallow relationships, don't we? And this is something that none of us really want. One of the ways that we can illustrate this is with a mask. I wanted our Iron Man mask, but I guess we gave it away. Our kids are past that, I guess, now. So Emily brought me this. This is all we had. This is a mask. Now, what does a mask do? It hides you, right? Or maybe you put on a persona. So I'm going to pretend to be, I don't know, give me a superhero. Come on. I'm Superman. This is not Superman. This is work. All right, Superman, right? So I have to pretend like I'm Superman. I'm Robin. I'll be careful. All right, so I got to pretend like I got it all together, that I'm a hero, all these sorts of things, or I'm an actor. Now, I'm on a platform, so this works, right? There's separation here, by the way. Like, I'm on a platform, you're out here, I have to present myself in a certain way to you because I'm trying to get you to accept me. And so what happens then as this takes place in our lives, like if this is how your relationships are built, everybody does this. Everybody's got a mask on. Everybody stays at a distance. Everybody pretends to be something or someone they're not. Now, some of you have been in relationships, right? It could be really healthy marriage relationships. Like marriage relationships are supposed to work like this. Maybe friendships. Maybe you've been a part of like a small group at church, or what we call a discipleship group in church. And what you've been able to do in those moments, or maybe you've tried this, or you've had other people that tried this, they take off the mask, right? And they start to reveal themselves to you. Like their struggles, things that are really going on with them. Now, what does that do to you? Or what do you want to do even? You still might not do it, but what do you eventually want to do? You want to take off yours too, don't you? Right? If you're willing to take off your mask, usually other people are willing to take off theirs as well. It's like permission almost. And yet so many of us, we just keep it on. And what happens is you might even be a trustworthy person, but you're not creating a culture of trust. You're not creating a culture of authenticity because you're keeping it on. And I understand feeling people out for a little while, right? You don't want to like be like just foolish and maybe tell some people things that you know that they're not ready to handle, or vice versa. But at some point, you have to find some people, and you need some people in your life that you know you can take the mask off for. And so we try to do this, by the way, in our church through our Catalyst communities and discipleship groups. We call our discipleship groups D groups. Our Catalyst communities are essentially our small groups where you have 12 or so adults and a bunch of kids sometimes, depending on the age group, running around, and you're discussing the sermons, or you're in a particular Bible study together, or watching a video series or whatever, and you're figuring out life together. And for those to work well, it's going to take some time, and it's also going to take some people like sharing their stuff, what's going on. Now, we even have smaller groups that we do this with. They're called D groups, and these are just men with men, women and women, and they're 5 or less. So, and you're getting into a Bible study together, and you're holding each other accountable, and you can go deeper, faster, and some accountability can take place there, but also some sharing can take place there that wouldn't in other avenues. And we're trying to create a culture and a place for that to take place. So this is what we're trying to do. Because here's the third thing that I want for all of you. I want for all of you to become people of deep character. people of deep character. David Brooks has become somewhat of a cultural commentator. He's always been that. Until about, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, he's an atheist or agnostic, and he started going to church at Redeemer Church in New York City. It was Tim Keller's church, who recently just passed away, I think last year. And one of the kind of crises that David Brooks has gone through in the past several years is just kind of looking at the culture and seeing that we are a culture that does not trust people anymore. Like, we are a culture that lacks moral formation. He wrote an article in The Atlantic, and it was titled "America's Having a Moral Convulsion." And he concludes that essentially America has a trust problem, and this is what he says. He says, levels of trust in this country, in our institutions, in our politics, and in one another are in precipitous decline. And when social trust collapses, nations fail. And then he's essentially can we get it back before it's too late? And one of the things that he is trying to encourage people to do is that if we want to continue as a society, and that's not my primary aim. My primary aim as a pastor is to pastor a church, is to lead a group of people towards Christ and for Christ. But he's telling essentially the culture in general is that we have to be a people and a place that requires consistent, visible, ethical behavior over time. Are we creating those types of people? Are we becoming those types of people? This is why it's so cool that LifeWise is coming here. We're trying to do that in the lives of our children. We're trying to provide a place for that to take place. Our homes, that's what we're supposed to do with our kids. It's part of what we're doing in the church. Eugene Peterson called following Jesus, or described following Jesus in this way: long obedience in the same direction. And so as we think about being authentic people, I also want us to think about it like this, is that we are all heading towards Jesus. For the rest of our lives, that's where we're heading. That's what we're trying to do. And some of us, are moving a little faster than others, Some of us need a little more grace than others. We all need to give it as people are on their journey. But we're all on this journey as we are walking towards Jesus. And we have to trust him with our lives. And as we learn to trust him, we have to learn to trust each other, because we are moving together. We are not alone as a church. And so I hope that this gives you permission for us to be authentic people. That's what we're doing. We're on the journey. And I would just tell you this: I can't speak for every person in here, but I can speak to you all that Jesus is trustworthy. I don't know if every person in here is trustworthy, but Jesus is trustworthy. And so that's where you have to begin if you're looking for a starting point, Trust in Jesus, and then honestly ask him, who are some people that I need to begin trusting and I need to begin this journey with, as I try to be more authentic people. And even if you want to join this church, that's what I'm challenging you to be. This is who I'm challenging you to be. And I hope you'll join me. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to conclude with communion. We're going to come forward with communion. And I want you to think about this. When we come forward for communion, this is a time where we are coming forward to commune with Christ. We are communing with Christ. Christ is present with us in communion. But we don't do this alone. We come together to commune with Christ together. We are communing with one another. The church is the community of God. It's the community of God's people. And so these are the people that are helping us become more like Christ. And so I want you to come forward with those two things on your heart and your mind. If you're here this morning and you feel like you want prayer before you take communion, some of our prayer team, they'll be back here. Don't hesitate to go back here and get prayer before you come forward. Let us pray. How to come forward is on the screen. Father, we thank you. We trust you. We love you. Help us learn to trust and love one another well. Help us be the church that you would have us to be. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.